A billionaire disguised as a beggar was ignored by everyone at the restaurant, until a poor waitress's 7-year-old daughter stopped before him. What happened next changed her life forever. Before we continue, I have to be straightforward. If you don't subscribe now, this might be the last time you see our content. The digital world can separate us unless you follow, comment, and share this video. Don't miss the chance to be part of our growing family. Now, let's delve into today's narrative. If you enjoy this heartwarming story of kindness and unexpected connections, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Now let's begin our journey. Gabriel Sullivan adjusted the tattered beanie cap over his perfectly styled hair and smudged another layer of fake dirt across his cheekbone. The bathroom of the Platinum Reserve was exactly what you'd expect from Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. Marble countertops, gold fixtures, and hand towels softer than most people's bedsheets. He glanced in the mirror one last time, barely recognizing the billionaire CEO of Sullivan Enterprises beneath the carefully crafted disguise. "You've lost your mind, Gabe," he whispered to his reflection. But he needed to know. After 30 years of people fawning over his wealth, his looks, his power, how would they treat him without all that? His therapist had called it an existential crisis. His board of directors would call it insanity if they knew. But something inside him was hollow, empty despite the billions in his accounts. He slipped out of the bathroom and into the restaurant's main dining area, where a single meal cost more than what most people earned in a day. He'd chosen the Platinum Reserve specifically because he owned a 30% stake in it, though that fact wasn't public knowledge. The restaurant hummed with the gentle murmur of the city's elite, politicians, celebrities, old money, and new tech wealth, all safely nestled in their bubble of privilege. Gabriel lowered himself to the floor near the coat check, assuming the universal position of the forgotten, knees drawn up, head down, a small paper cup extended. He was methodical even in this experiment, having researched how actual homeless people behaved in upscale areas. He'd even gone so far as to visit a shelter incognito, listening to stories that haunted him for weeks afterward. "Sir, you can't be here," a voice hissed immediately. The maitre d' Alessandro, who had personally shown Gabriel to his regular table countless times, now looked at him with disgust. "How did you get in? Security." Gabriel kept his head down. "Just a little help," he mumbled, intentionally slurring his words. "Haven't eaten in 2 days." Alessandro stepped back as if Gabriel carried some contagious disease. "Security will help you find the exit," he said coldly, gesturing to the bulky man approaching from across the room. What happened next unfolded exactly as Gabriel had cynically predicted. The security guard roughly grabbed his arm, whispering threats about calling the police if he ever returned. None of the diners even looked up from their plates. A disturbance like this was beneath their notice. As he was being half-dragged toward the service exit, Gabriel noted how they averted their eyes, how conversations continued uninterrupted, champagne flutes clinking as if nothing was happening, except for one pair of eyes that didn't look away. In the back corner of the restaurant, a small figure watched the scene with open curiosity. A little girl, perhaps 7 or 8, with unruly dark curls and an expression too serious for her age. Unlike the designer clothes adorning the other patrons, she wore a simple blue dress that had seen better days. She sat at a table laid with silverware but no food, quietly coloring on a children's menu while occasionally glancing at a young woman rushing between tables with practiced efficiency. The woman, clearly the girl's mother based on their matching curls, wore the black uniform of the Platinum Reserve's waitstaff. She moved with the desperate energy of someone whose entire livelihood depended on keeping these wealthy people happy, balancing plates with the precision of a circus performer. As Gabriel was pushed toward the exit, the little girl's eyes followed him. There was no disgust there, no fear or judgment, just pure, uncomplicated curiosity. It struck him as profoundly foreign in this environment of calculated appearances. "Wait here," the security guard ordered, depositing Gabriel in the alley behind the kitchen. "Don't move while I call someone to escort you further away from the premises." The moment the guard disappeared back inside, Gabriel contemplated ending his experiment. He'd seen what he needed to see, confirmation of humanity's indifference. But something made him linger. The image of those unguarded eyes watching him without judgment stayed with him. The service door creaked open, and Gabriel pressed himself against the wall, expecting the return of security. Instead, a small figure slipped out, looking both ways before spotting him. It was the girl with the serious eyes. She approached without hesitation, and up close Gabriel could see that her dress wasn't just simple. It was carefully mended in several places. She clutched something wrapped in a napkin. "Are you really hungry?" she asked, her voice matter-of-fact. Gabriel, caught off guard, could only nod. "I thought so." She extended the napkin toward him. "You can have my cookie. Mom says I can only have one dessert a week, and I already had ice cream on Tuesday." Inside the napkin was a slightly crushed chocolate chip cookie, the kind the restaurant served to children while their parents studied the wine list. I can't take your cookie," Gabriel said, momentarily forgetting his role. The girl tilted her head. "Why not? You're hungry and I'm not. My mom says we should always help people when we can." She pressed the napkin into his hand. "I'm Emma. What's your name?" "Gee," he caught himself. "George. That's a nice name. My grandpa was named George, but he died when I was 5. She said this with the straightforward acceptance unique to children. "Are you cold too?" "It's pretty cold tonight." Before Gabriel could answer, the service door burst open again. "Emma, what are you doing out here?" The waitress, Emma's mother, rushed forward, panic written across her features. She grabbed her daughter's hand, pulling her back. "I'm so sorry if she bothered you," she said to Gabriel, not quite meeting his eyes. "He's hungry, Mom," Emma explained. "I gave him my cookie." The woman's face softened momentarily, torn between fear and compassion. Gabriel saw the calculation in her eyes, the instinctive protective urge of a mother versus the empathy of a person who understood hardship. That's very kind, sweetie, but we need to get back inside before Mr. Alessandro notices we're gone." She glanced at Gabriel. "I'm sorry. I would help if I could, but—" "Sarah, what the hell are you doing?" Alessandro's sharp voice cut through the night air as he appeared in the doorway. "Bringing your kid to work is bad enough, but now you're fraternizing with vagrants?" The woman, Sarah, paled. "I'm sorry, sir." Emma wandered out. "It won't happen again." Alessandro's eyes narrowed. "See that it doesn't. One more incident and you can find another job." He glared at Gabriel. "And you. Security is on their way. If you're still here in 2 minutes, you'll be spending the night in jail." Sarah tugged Emma back toward the door, whispering something in her ear. The little girl looked over her shoulder at Gabriel, her eyes wide and sad. "Wait," Gabriel called out, an unfamiliar emotion constricting his chest. "Thank you for the cookie, Emma." The girl smiled, a quick flash of light in the dark alley, before disappearing back into the restaurant with her mother. Gabriel stood there, the small cookie heavy in his hand. In his 30 years, he'd been given many things: cars, watches, vacation homes, even a private island once, all from people who wanted something in return. But this small, slightly squashed cookie was the first gift he could remember receiving that came with absolutely no expectations. He walked away before security returned, his experiment yielding results far different than he'd anticipated. As he made his way back to his penthouse, he couldn't stop thinking about Emma's unguarded kindness and Sarah's evident struggle. The mended dress, the exhaustion etched into her young face, the fear of losing her job. By morning, Gabriel Sullivan had made 3 decisions. First, he would find out everything there was to know about Sarah and Emma. Second, he would ensure they never had to worry about money again. And third, he would do it all without them ever discovering who he really was. What Gabriel couldn't possibly know was that his encounter with Emma would change not just her life, but his own in ways he couldn't begin to imagine. 6 days after his homeless experiment, Gabriel sat in his office on the 87th floor of Sullivan Tower. Manhattan's skyline spread before him like a glittering carpet. The panoramic windows showcased a perfect spring day, but his attention was fixed on the folder his private investigator had just delivered. "Tell me what you found, James," Gabriel said, running a finger along the edge of the folder without opening it. James Miller, former FBI agent and now head of security for Sullivan Enterprises, stood with military posture on the other side of Gabriel's massive desk. Sarah Collins, 32, single mother to Emma Collins, age 7. No father in the picture. He left when Sarah was 2 months pregnant. She's worked at the Platinum Reserve for 3 years, mostly double shifts. Before that, she was at 2 other restaurants that closed. Nursing degree, partially completed, had to drop out when she got pregnant. Gabriel nodded, absorbing the information. Housing situation? 1-bedroom apartment in Queens. Emma sleeps in the bedroom. Sarah takes the couch. Rent's been late twice in the past year, but she always manages to pay before eviction proceedings. Emma attends PS 107, good student despite missing some school due to childcare issues. Sarah's mother helps when she can, but has health problems of her own. Gabriel finally opened the folder, scanning photographs of a modest apartment building. Emma in a school uniform, Sarah rushing to work in the pre-dawn hours. Medical? James shifted slightly. Sarah has no health insurance beyond the bare minimum. Emma had pneumonia last winter. The medical bills are still being paid off in installments. Friends? Support system? Limited. A couple of other single moms in the building. One neighbor, elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, watches Emma sometimes. Sarah doesn't socialize much. No time between work and parenting. Gabriel closed the folder, a strange sensation settling in his chest. He'd grown up with every advantage. Private schools, trust funds, connections. The gulf between his life and Sarah's seemed unbridgeable, yet her daughter had been the only person to show him simple human kindness during his experiment. "What are you planning, sir?" James asked, breaking protocol by voicing his curiosity. Gabriel leaned back in his chair. "I'm not entirely sure yet, but I want to help them without..." He paused, searching for words, without it feeling like charity. James raised an eyebrow. "That's a fine line to walk." "Perhaps." Gabriel stood and walked to the window. "First step, I want to purchase the Platinum Reserve quietly, through one of our shell companies. You already own 30%. I want it all, and I don't want anyone connecting it to me personally." Gabriel turned back to face his security chief. "Second step, Sarah Collins gets promoted to management, with a substantial salary increase and full benefits. Create a position if necessary." James made notes on his tablet. "And the current management? Alessandro can stay if he can adapt to new leadership, if not." Gabriel shrugged. "Third step, establish an anonymous educational trust for Emma. Full ride through college and beyond if she wants it." "That's unusually generous even for you," James observed carefully. "May I ask why? You've never met these people." Gabriel picked up the chocolate chip cookie sitting on his desk, the same one Emma had given him, now preserved in a small acrylic case like a priceless artifact. "Let's just say I'm conducting a long-term social experiment." He set the cookie down gently. "And James? They can never know it was me. As far as they're concerned, it's just a stroke of good fortune." "Understood, sir." After James left, Gabriel found himself staring at the city below, wondering what Emma was doing at that moment. Was she in school, learning about a world that had already decided what opportunities she should or shouldn't have based on the circumstances of her birth? Was Sarah working another double shift, her feet aching, worrying about rent or the next time her daughter would get sick? He'd spent years accumulating wealth, building an empire that employed thousands, yet he couldn't remember the last time he'd directly improved someone's life. His charitable foundation donated millions, but it was all handled by a team of people. Impersonal. Distant. This felt different. Personal. Almost. Human. 2 weeks later, Gabriel watched from the back of his limousine as Sarah emerged from the Platinum Reserve, her face a mixture of shock and cautious joy. The restaurant had changed ownership overnight, and the new management company had promoted her to floor manager with a salary that tripled her previous income. The employee benefits package now included comprehensive health insurance, and her schedule would allow her to be home when Emma returned from school. When she pulled out her phone, hands trembling slightly, Gabriel could imagine her calling whoever watched Emma, sharing the impossible news. He felt a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the car's heating system. The following month, a letter arrived at Sarah's apartment explaining that Emma had been selected for a special educational opportunity. A full scholarship through the Future Leaders Foundation, covering everything from tutoring and summer camps to a complete college fund. The only requirement was maintaining good grades and writing a thank you letter each year to the anonymous donors. Gabriel had the first of these letters framed in his private study, away from the curious eyes of business associates or the occasional dates he brought to his penthouse. Emma's childish handwriting and unfiltered gratitude became something of a talisman for him, a reminder that wealth could be used for more than just accumulating more wealth. Over the next 2 years, Gabriel found ways to keep tabs on Emma and Sarah without directly entering their lives. James provided quarterly updates on their situation, Sarah excelling in her management role, eventually overseeing 2 additional restaurants in the same restaurant group, Emma thriving academically with the help of the foundation's resources, their move to a comfortable 3-bedroom apartment in a safer neighborhood. Sometimes Gabriel would visit the Platinum Reserve, sitting at a corner table where he could observe Sarah in her element, confident, respected, happy. She never recognized him as the homeless man from that night, and he made sure to be just another wealthy patron. Nothing to distinguish him from the dozens of others who passed through the restaurant each evening. He never approached Emma again, though occasionally he'd spot her sitting in the manager's office doing homework or reading a book, waiting for her mother's shift to end. She was growing taller, her serious expression occasionally breaking into a smile that transformed her entire face. From a distance, Gabriel witnessed the child who had offered her only cookie to a stranger, blossoming into a bright, compassionate young girl. If anyone at Sullivan Enterprises noticed their CEO's newfound interest in a specific restaurant, or his unusual insistence on charitable funding for one particular child, they were wise enough not to mention it. Gabriel Sullivan was known for his eccentricities, after all. The billionaire who lived relatively modestly despite his fortune, who avoided publicity despite his position, who remained unmarried despite being one of New York's most eligible bachelors. What no one knew, not even James, was that Gabriel had begun to measure his life in 2 distinct eras, before Emma's cookie and after. Before, his wealth had been a tool for creating more wealth, a game of numbers and acquisitions. After, it had become something else, a potential force for change in individual lives. He found himself researching other cases like Sarah and Emma's, other single parents struggling to provide opportunities for their children despite systems designed to keep them down. The Sullivan Foundation quietly shifted its focus from broad charitable initiatives to targeted interventions in specific families' lives, always anonymously, always with the same conditions: education, opportunity, dignity, rather than handouts. On a crisp autumn evening, nearly 2 years after his experiment at the Platinum Reserve, Gabriel sat alone in his penthouse, scrolling through the latest report on the Foundation's activities. 67 families now received support similar to what he'd arranged for Sarah and Emma. Anonymously funded college educations, medical bills settled, small business loans with ridiculous terms that all but guaranteed success. His phone rang, James, calling outside of their scheduled update times. "What is it?" Gabriel answered, immediately alert. James's voice was grim. "It's about Emma Collins, sir. She's in the hospital." Gabriel felt his blood turn to ice. "What happened?" "Collapsed at school this morning. They're running tests, but—" James hesitated. "Sir, it doesn't look good. They're talking about rare blood disorders, possibly leukemia." Gabriel was already moving, grabbing his jacket. "Which hospital?" "New York Presbyterian Pediatric Oncology." "Get me everything, her doctors, treatment options, specialists, everything." "Already on it, sir. But there's something else you should know." Gabriel paused at the door. "What?" "Sarah's insurance, the company plan you established. It's comprehensive, but if this is what they suspect. Some of the treatments, especially experimental ones." "Money is no object," Gabriel said flatly. "Whatever she needs, she gets. Set up a special fund through the foundation immediately." "And James?" "Sir, make sure Sarah never has to worry about anything except being with her daughter. Her job is secure, her bills are paid, whatever she needs." "Understood." Gabriel ended the call, a strange tightness in his chest. The universe had a cruel sense of irony. giving Sarah and Emma a taste of security and stability, only to threaten it with something money might not be able to fix. As his private elevator descended, Gabriel found himself doing something he hadn't done since childhood. He was praying. Not to any specific deity, but to whatever force might be listening. That the little girl who had shared her cookie with a stranger would be given the chance to grow up and share her light with the world. What he didn't yet realize was that this crisis would finally bring him face to face with Emma again, and that their second meeting would prove even more life-changing than the first. The pediatric oncology floor of New York Presbyterian Hospital was designed to feel less clinical. Walls painted with cheerful murals, treatment rooms decorated with cartoon characters, a playroom filled with toys and books. But no amount of bright colors could disguise the reality of what happened here. Children fought for their lives while parents fought against despair. Gabriel had never visited this part of the hospital before, despite his foundation donating millions to the facility over the years. Now dressed in a simple sweater and jeans rather than his usual tailored suits, he stood in the hallway outside room 423, watching through the partially open door as Sarah Collins slept in an uncomfortable chair beside her daughter's bed. Emma lay against white hospital sheets, looking smaller and more fragile than her 9 years. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and the early stages of hair loss were visible where her once wild curls had begun to thin. An IV line snaked from her arm to a series of bags hanging beside the bed. Despite everything, her face in sleep retained the innocence that had first struck Gabriel in that alley 2 years ago. Dr. Helen Rivera, the head of pediatric oncology, stood beside Gabriel, keeping her voice low. It's an extremely rare form of leukemia, juvenile myelomonocytic leukemia with a specific genetic mutation we rarely see. Traditional treatments have limited effectiveness. We've started her on a modified chemotherapy protocol, but it's not working, Gabriel finished, reading between the lines. Dr. Rivera sighed. Not as well as we'd hoped. There's an experimental treatment being developed at Reichmann Labs in Switzerland, a targeted gene therapy that's shown promise in cases similar to Emma's. But it's still in trials, incredibly expensive, and— Make it happen, Gabriel interrupted. Whatever it costs, whatever strings need to be pulled, the foundation will cover everything. The doctor studied him carefully. Mr. Sullivan, I appreciate your foundation's generosity, but we're talking about millions of dollars for an unproven treatment, plus the regulatory hurdles to get approval for compassionate use. I understand the challenges, Doctor. That's why I'm personally involving myself in this case. Gabriel turned to face her fully. I have connections at the FDA at Reichmann, and if necessary, I'll buy the damn lab. Just tell me what Emma needs, and I'll make it happen. Dr. Rivera's professional demeanor softened slightly. May I ask why this particular child? Your foundation helps many sick children. Gabriel glanced back at Emma's sleeping form. Let's just say she once did me a kindness that can't be repaid. Before the doctor could question him further, there was movement in the room. Sarah was awake, gently stroking Emma's hand and whispering something to her daughter. The tenderness of the gesture made Gabriel's chest ache with an unfamiliar emotion. I should go, he said quietly. Please keep me updated on her condition, and remember, any treatment, any specialist anywhere in the world, cost is not a consideration. As he turned to leave, Dr. Rivera caught his arm. Mr. Sullivan, the mother should know where this help is coming from. This goes beyond normal foundation support. Gabriel shook his head firmly. The same arrangement as always. The Future Leaders Foundation provides the funding anonymously. Sarah Collins never needs to know of my personal involvement. But those are my conditions, Doctor. Please respect them. Gabriel left the hospital through a service entrance, avoiding the main lobby where he might be recognized. In the back of his limousine, he loosened his tie and closed his eyes, trying to process the emotions churning inside him. He had built his business empire on logic and strategy, not sentiment. Yet here he was, ready to move mountains for a child he barely knew, all because of a cookie and a moment of kindness when he had been at his most cynical. Over the following weeks, Gabriel threw the full weight of his influence behind Emma's treatment. The experimental therapy from Reichmann Labs received expedited FDA approval for compassionate use. The leading specialist in juvenile leukemia was flown in from Tokyo. A dedicated team of nurses was assembled to provide round-the-clock care. All of it arranged through layers of foundation bureaucracy. All of it presented to Sarah as extraordinary good fortune, a special case taken on by the mysterious foundation that had already changed their lives once before. Gabriel kept his distance, receiving daily updates from Dr. Rivera and James, watching from afar as Emma began the experimental treatment. The process was brutal. Side effects that ravaged her small body, days of fever and pain, moments when the outcome hung in precarious balance. During the worst of it, Gabriel found himself unable to focus on work, canceling meetings and delegating decisions that would normally require his attention. He took to walking the streets of Manhattan late at night, retracing the paths he imagined Sarah might have walked when she was struggling to make ends meet. The city looked different through this lens. Not a playground for the wealthy, but a battlefield where people like Sarah fought daily just to survive. On a rainy Tuesday evening, roughly 2 months after Emma's diagnosis, Gabriel's phone rang with a call from Dr. Rivera. "We're seeing promising results," she said without preamble. "The latest blood work shows a significant reduction in cancer cells. If this trend continues." "She could recover?" Gabriel asked, barely daring to hope. It's too soon to use words like remission, but yes, she's responding better than we dared hope. The Reichmann protocol is working. Gabriel released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. And Sarah, how is she holding up? Exhausted but resilient. She hasn't left the hospital in days. I've tried to convince her to at least go home and shower, but she's afraid to leave Emma's side. Dr. Rivera paused. "Mr. Sullivan, she knows something doesn't add up. She's been asking questions about how all this was arranged so quickly, how the foundation managed to get experimental treatments approved in record time." "What have you told her?" "Only what you instructed, that Emma's case caught the attention of the foundation's directors, that sometimes miracles happen." Gabriel pinched the bridge of his nose. "That will have to do for now. Is there anything else they need, anything at all?" The doctor hesitated. "This may sound trivial, but Emma's birthday is next week. She'll still be in the hospital, of course, but Sarah mentioned wanting to make it special somehow." Something twisted in Gabriel's chest. "She'll be 10? "Yes. Sarah was trying to arrange a small celebration in Emma's room, but with everything that's happened." "Leave it to me," Gabriel said. "The foundation will ensure it's a birthday she won't forget." After ending the call, Gabriel sat in his darkened office, rain streaming down the floor-to-ceiling windows, blurring the city lights into watercolor smudges. Emma would be 10 if she survived. The same age he had been when his parents died in the plane crash that left him an orphan with a fortune too vast for a child to comprehend. He remembered his first birthday after their death, the hollow celebrations orchestrated by guardians who saw him as a responsibility rather than a child, the expensive gifts that couldn't fill the emptiness inside him. No one had really seen him then. Not as a boy who was hurting, only as the Sullivan heir who needed to be shaped into the next steward of the family empire. Gabriel picked up his phone again, dialing James. "I need you to arrange something," he said when his security chief answered. "A birthday celebration for Emma Collins. Everything a 10-year-old girl in her situation could want, but nothing ostentatious or overwhelming given her condition. And find out what she's interested in, books, movies, activities, what would make her happy." "Of course, sir. But may I suggest something?" "Go ahead." "These arrangements, the treatments, the specialists, now this birthday, they would mean more coming from you personally rather than through intermediaries." Gabriel frowned. "We've discussed this, James. They can never know." "With all due respect, sir, why not? You've hidden behind the foundation for 2 years. At some point, don't they deserve to know who's really helping them?" The question hung in the air, challenging the careful distance Gabriel had maintained. He had legitimate reasons for his anonymity. He didn't want gratitude, didn't want Sarah to feel indebted, didn't want to be seen as a wealthy savior swooping in to rescue the less fortunate. And deeper reasons he hardly admitted to himself. Fear that direct involvement would make him vulnerable in ways he'd spent a lifetime avoiding. "Just make the arrangements, James," he said finally. "As always, the foundation takes credit." The morning of Emma's birthday, Gabriel found himself once again standing outside room 423. this time carrying a small, carefully wrapped package. The room had been transformed overnight. Tasteful decorations hung from the ceiling. A small table held a beautiful cake, and a modest pile of gifts sat in the corner. All arranged by foundation staff, all appearing as if by magic for Sarah and Emma. Through the door, he could hear Emma's voice, weaker than it should be for a child her age, but animated with excitement. "Mom, look at all this. Did you do this?" Sarah's laugh held equal parts joy and exhaustion. "The foundation arranged it, sweetie. They wanted your birthday to be special, even in the hospital. They're like fairy godmothers, aren't they? Except maybe fairy god people, since we don't know who they are." Gabriel smiled at her description, then froze as he heard Sarah's response. "Sometimes I wonder if it's just one person, someone specific who's watching over us. It all started after that night at the restaurant, remember? When you gave your cookie to that homeless man?" "I remember him," Emma said softly. "He had sad eyes. Do you think he's okay now?" "I hope so, baby. I've always thought that, maybe. Maybe somehow that small kindness you showed came back to us multiplied. Like in those stories about angels in disguise or something." Gabriel stepped back from the door, his heart pounding uncomfortably. The small package in his hand suddenly felt heavy with implications. It contained a rare first edition of The Secret Garden. James had discovered it was Emma's favorite book, one her mother used to read to her before the diagnosis, before the treatments left her too exhausted for their nightly ritual. He had planned to leave it with the nurses, another anonymous gift among many. But now, hearing Sarah's words, something shifted inside him. 2 years of careful distance, of watching from afar as his wealth changed their lives, and somehow this perceptive woman had sensed the truth, that it all connected back to that one moment of kindness in an alley behind a restaurant. Before he could reconsider, Gabriel knocked softly on the door. "Come in," called Emma's voice. Taking a deep breath, Gabriel Sullivan, billionaire, CEO, the man who had spent 2 years hiding behind foundations and intermediaries, stepped into the hospital room to face the little girl who had once offered her only cookie to a stranger in need. What happened next would change all 3 of their lives in ways none of them could have predicted. When Gabriel stepped into the hospital room, he was struck by how small Emma looked against the white sheets. Despite the colorful birthday decorations and the cheerful balloons floating near the ceiling, there was no disguising the toll the treatments had taken on her young body. Her once wild curls had thinned considerably, and her skin had a translucent quality that made the blue veins at her temples stand out starkly. But her eyes, those serious, intelligent eyes that had seen through his disguise in a way no one else had, they were exactly the same. Those eyes widened now as she took in the stranger at her door, a tall man in an expensive but understated sweater, holding a carefully wrapped package. Sarah rose from her chair beside the bed, instinctively placing herself between her daughter and the unknown visitor. "Can I help you?" Gabriel swallowed, suddenly uncertain of his decision. I'm here to wish Emma a happy birthday," he said, his usually confident voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "Are you from the foundation?" Sarah asked, her posture relaxing slightly but her eyes still wary. Gabriel glanced at Emma, who was studying him with open curiosity. "In a manner of speaking, yes." "You look familiar," Emma said suddenly, her head tilting in that same thoughtful way he remembered from the alley. "Have we met before?" The question hung in the air, heavy with possibilities. Gabriel could back out now, maintain the fiction of being just another foundation representative, but something in Emma's direct gaze made the carefully constructed walls around his life seem suddenly meaningless. "We have, actually," he admitted, "though I looked quite different then." Sarah stepped closer to her daughter's bed, protective. "I'm sorry, but who exactly are you?" Gabriel set the wrapped package on the foot of Emma's bed and extended his hand to Sarah. "Gabriel Sullivan. I'm the founder of the Future Leaders Foundation." Sarah's eyes widened in recognition. "Sullivan, as in Sullivan Enterprises? The technology company?" "Among other things, yes. But the foundation?" Sarah frowned, connecting dots in her mind. "We were told the foundation had multiple anonymous donors, a board of directors who selected recipients. That's the official structure, yes." Gabriel shifted uncomfortably under her scrutiny. But in your case, in Emma's case, the decisions were more personal. Emma was looking back and forth between the adults, her brow furrowed. Mom, who is he? Before Sarah could answer, Gabriel turned to Emma and slowly lowered himself into the chair beside her bed. At eye level with her now, he said softly. The last time we met, I was pretending to be someone I'm not. I was sitting outside a restaurant and everyone walked past me except for one very kind little girl who offered me her cookie. Emma's eyes grew impossibly wide. The hungry man, that was you? Gabriel nodded. That was me. But you weren't really homeless, you were pretending? I was conducting an experiment, Gabriel explained, aware of how strange it must sound. I wanted to see how people would treat me if they didn't know I was wealthy. And what I discovered was that most people, wealthy people especially, couldn't see past appearances, but you did. Emma considered this with a seriousness beyond her years. So you weren't really hungry. I gave you my cookie for nothing. Gabriel felt a lump form in his throat. It wasn't for nothing, Emma. That cookie, your kindness, it changed something in me. It changed how I saw the world. Sarah had sunk back into her chair, her expression a mixture of disbelief and dawning comprehension. The restaurant, the promotion, Emma's scholarship, all of it was you? The foundation is real, Gabriel assured her. But yes, it was created initially because of what happened that night, because of Emma. The room fell silent except for the steady beeping of the medical equipment. Gabriel could see Sarah processing this revelation, could almost hear the questions forming in her mind. Why had he hidden his identity for so long? What did he want from them now? Was this some sort of elaborate game for a bored billionaire? It was Emma who broke the silence. Can I open my present? She asked, eyeing the package at the foot of her bed. The simple, childlike question cut through the tension, and Gabriel found himself smiling with relief. Of course, that's why I brought it. With careful movements that spoke of conserving limited energy, Emma reached for the package and slowly unwrapped it. When she saw what was inside, her face transformed with pure joy. Mom, look, it's the secret garden, a really old one. Sarah leaned forward. Emma, be careful with that, it looks very valuable. It's a first edition, Gabriel confirmed. I heard it was your favorite book. Emma ran her fingers reverently over the embossed cover. Mom used to read it to me every night, but since I've been sick. Her voice trailed off. I thought perhaps I could read some of it to you, Gabriel offered, surprising himself. For your birthday. If that's okay with your mother. Sarah studied him, her initial shock giving way to cautious acceptance. I think that would be nice, if Emma wants it. Emma nodded eagerly, already handing him the book. Start from the beginning, please. That's my favorite part, when Mary is so cross and doesn't know anything good is going to happen to her yet. Gabriel carefully opened the fragile volume to the first page. As he began to read about the contrary little girl who found herself in a strange new world, he was acutely aware of Sarah watching him, questions still evident in her expression. There would be time for explanations later, time to untangle the web of secrecy and coincidence that had brought them to this moment. For now, there was only this. A little girl fighting for her life, a mother clinging to hope, and a man who had discovered that all his wealth meant nothing compared to the simple gift of human connection. Gabriel read until Emma drifted off to sleep, the excitement of the day and the toll of her treatments finally overcoming her. When he gently closed the book, Sarah motioned for him to follow her into the hallway. Outside Emma's room, away from the sleeping child, Sarah's composure wavered. Why? She asked simply. Why all the secrecy? Why us? Gabriel leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. I've asked myself the same questions many times. At first I told myself it was an experiment in anonymous giving, that true charity required no recognition. But the truth is, he paused, searching for words to explain something he barely understood himself. The truth is, I was afraid. Afraid? Of what? Of this. Of becoming personally involved. Of caring what happened to you and Emma. Gabriel ran a hand through his hair. I've spent most of my adult life keeping people at a distance. It's easier that way, safer. Sarah's expression softened marginally. So what changed? Why reveal yourself now? Emma's illness. When I heard the diagnosis, Gabriel swallowed hard. I realized that hiding behind the foundation wasn't enough anymore. I needed to do more. To be more. More what? More human, I suppose. Sarah studied him for a long moment, her eyes taking his measure in a way that reminded him of her daughter. Mr. Sullivan, Gabriel, please. Gabriel, then. I appreciate everything you've done for us, truly. But I need to understand what happens now. What do you want from us? The question caught him off guard. Want from you? Nothing. I don't expect anything in return. Everyone wants something, Sarah said, a hint of the hardness that comes from years of struggle evident in her voice. In my experience, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. Gabriel understood her suspicion. In her position, he would feel the same. I promise you, Sarah, I have no ulterior motive. Emma showed me kindness when I was pretending to be at my lowest. Everything since then has been my way of honoring that kindness. And if Emma hadn't given you that cookie? If she'd walked past like everyone else? The question struck at the heart of something Gabriel had often contemplated. Then I would have confirmed my cynical view of humanity, gone back to my empty penthouse and continued accumulating wealth for no real purpose. He met her gaze directly. Your daughter didn't just share her cookie with me. She gave me back my faith in people. Sarah's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She has that effect on people. Always has. She wiped at her eyes quickly. So where do we go from here? Does Emma's treatment continue? Does the foundation, your foundation, keep supporting us? Everything continues exactly as before, Gabriel assured her. The only difference is that now you know who I am. If you're comfortable with it, I'd like to visit Emma sometimes. Read to her, perhaps. Be there for her recovery. And if she doesn't recover? Sarah asked, giving voice to the fear that haunted her every moment. Gabriel felt his chest tighten. Then we fight harder. We find other treatments, other specialists. Whatever it takes. Why? She's just one child among millions who get sick every year. What makes Emma so special that Gabriel Sullivan himself gets involved? The question had no easy answer. By any objective measure, Emma was indeed just one of countless children facing life-threatening illnesses. His resources could help many more if distributed broadly, rather than concentrated on her case. I can't explain it rationally, he admitted finally. All I know is that when I heard she was sick, nothing else mattered. I had to help her. Had to try, at least. Sarah seemed to accept this, nodding slowly. I should get back to her. She doesn't sleep well in the hospital. Too many interruptions, too much noise. Of course. I've taken enough of your time. Gabriel handed her a business card. My private number. Call me day or night if there's anything either of you need. Sarah took the card, turning it over in her fingers. This is all still hard to believe. I understand. Take whatever time you need to process it. I'll wait for you to contact me. As Gabriel turned to leave, Sarah called after him softly. Mr. Sullivan, Gabriel, thank you. Not just for the treatments and the birthday and everything else. Thank you for seeing her, really seeing Emma, when most people wouldn't have bothered. Her words followed him as he made his way out of the hospital and into the waiting car. In the back seat, Gabriel found himself replaying the entire encounter, analyzing his feelings with the same precision he usually reserved for business decisions. He had broken his own rule by revealing himself to Sarah and Emma. The careful distance he had maintained for 2 years had been bridged in a moment of, what? Sentimentality? Guilt? Or something deeper, a need for connection he had denied for too long? Whatever his reasons, there was no going back now. He had entered their lives not just as an anonymous benefactor, but as himself. Gabriel Sullivan, with all his wealth and power and, yes, his profound loneliness. As the car merged into New York traffic, Gabriel pulled out his phone and called James. How did it go? His security chief asked immediately. I told them the truth, about everything. James was silent for a moment. And their reaction? Shocked, of course. Suspicious, especially Sarah, but Emma. Gabriel found himself smiling at the memory of her face lighting up at the sight of the book. Emma just wanted to know if I'd read to her. So what now, sir? Now we continue fighting for her recovery, double our efforts, and I'll be personally involved from this point forward. After ending the call, Gabriel gazed out at the city streets, seeing them differently than he had just hours before. For years, he had moved through New York in a bubble of privilege, isolated from the daily struggles of people like Sarah. His experiment as a homeless man had been a brief glimpse into another reality, but it was Emma's illness that had truly shattered his comfortable detachment. Now he found himself caring, deeply, painfully, about what happened to this child. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Back in his penthouse, Gabriel went straight to his study and removed the framed letter from the wall, Emma's thank you note to the foundation, written in careful, childish handwriting. He read it again, noticing details he'd overlooked before. The way she dotted her I's with tiny circles. The places where she'd clearly erased and rewritten words to make them neater. The sincerity that radiated from every line. For the first time in years, Gabriel Sullivan felt the weight of his solitary existence. His parents had died when he was 10, the same age Emma was now, leaving him with unimaginable wealth but no real family. Since then, he had built walls around himself, measuring relationships in terms of utility rather than emotional connection. Emma and Sarah had somehow breached those walls without even trying. And now that they had, Gabriel found himself facing a question he hadn't considered in a very long time. What did he really want from life? The answer, surprisingly, had nothing to do with acquisitions or stock prices or corporate expansions. What he wanted was to see Emma healthy again, to watch her grow up and discover her potential, to be, in some small way, a part of her life. With that realization came another, more sobering thought. What if, despite all his resources, all his influence, they couldn't save her? What if the experimental treatments failed? Money could buy the best medical care in the world, but it couldn't guarantee outcomes. For the first time in his adult life, Gabriel found himself confronting a problem that his billions might not be able to solve. The thought was terrifying and strangely liberating. In his helplessness, he found common ground with Sarah. They were both fighting for Emma, both equally powerless in the face of her illness, regardless of the vast gulf between their financial situations. This shared vulnerability formed a connection more authentic than any Gabriel had experienced in years. And as he sat in his silent penthouse, surrounded by the trappings of wealth that suddenly seemed meaningless, Gabriel Sullivan made a decision. Whatever happened with Emma's treatment, success or failure, he would not retreat behind his walls again. He would remain present, engaged, human. For Emma, for Sarah, and perhaps most importantly, for himself. Over the next 3 weeks, Gabriel became a regular visitor at the hospital. He arrived every evening at precisely 7 p.m., a copy of The Secret Garden tucked under his arm, ready to continue where they had left off the night before. The hospital staff quickly grew accustomed to the sight of the billionaire CEO sitting beside Emma's bed, reading aloud as she drifted between wakefulness and sleep. Sarah was initially wary of his presence, watching their interactions with cautious eyes. But as days turned into weeks, her reservations gradually softened. Gabriel was unfailingly respectful of their space, never staying too long or imposing himself when Emma was too tired for company. He brought no extravagant gifts, made no grand gestures, just his consistent presence and the gentle ritual of their nightly reading. Emma, for her part, seemed to accept Gabriel's role in their lives with the straightforward adaptability of childhood. She asked direct questions about his wealth. Are you richer than Iron Man? His personal life. Don't you get lonely in a big penthouse all by yourself? And his motives. Why did you pretend to be homeless if you have all that money? Gabriel answered her honestly, finding it surprisingly easy to explain complex concepts to her curious mind. She absorbed his explanations about social experiments, economic inequality, and the isolation that often accompanies extreme wealth, with the same serious consideration she gave to everything. So you were trying to see if people would be nice to you even if they didn't know you were rich? She asked after one such conversation. Essentially, yes. Emma nodded thoughtfully. That's sad that no one was nice except me. But maybe they were just having bad days. Mom says sometimes people are mean because they're hurting inside. Her compassion, even for those who had ignored her homeless friend, struck Gabriel profoundly. Here was a child fighting for her life, yet still capable of empathy for strangers who had shown none in return. On a Wednesday evening in late April, Gabriel arrived at the hospital to find Emma's room empty, the bed stripped, and the birthday decorations gone. For a moment, panic seized him. Had something happened? Had her condition suddenly deteriorated? He rushed to the nurse's station, his usual composed demeanor cracking. "Emma Collins, where is she? What happened?" The charge nurse looked up, surprised by his intensity. "Mr. Sullivan, didn't anyone call you?" "Emma's been moved to the recovery floor. Her latest tests showed significant improvement, so Dr. Rivera transferred her this morning." Relief washed over him so powerfully that he had to grip the counter for support. "She's better?" "The experimental treatment is working better than expected. Her blood counts are improving daily. Dr. Rivera is cautiously optimistic." Gabriel felt lightheaded, as if the air in the corridor had suddenly thinned. "Which room is she in now?" "Room 612. "And Mr. Sullivan?" The nurse smiled. "She was asking for you earlier. Something about reaching a critical point in the story." When Gabriel entered room 612, he found a transformed Emma. Though still thin and pale, there was a new energy about her. She sat propped up against pillows, actually smiling as Sarah adjusted the blinds to let in the spring sunshine. "Gabriel!" Emma's face lit up when she saw him. "Mom, look, he came. I told you he would." Sarah turned, and Gabriel was struck by the change in her as well. Some of the tension had left her shoulders, and though exhaustion still lined her face, there was hope in her eyes now. "The nurses said you were looking for us downstairs," she said. "Sorry no one called you about the move. It happened rather suddenly this morning." "Dr. Rivera didn't want to jinx anything," Emma explained seriously. "She said sometimes when you say good news out loud too soon, the universe gets other ideas." Gabriel smiled at her interpretation. "Well, I'm very happy to see you in this new room. It has a much better view." "And the food is better too," Emma confided. "I actually ate some lunch today, not just Jell-O, real food." "That's wonderful," Gabriel said, taking his usual seat beside her bed. "Should we continue our story?" "I believe we left Mary and Dickon just as they were beginning to bring the garden back to life." As he opened the book, Sarah quietly excused herself. "I'm going to get some coffee from the cafeteria. I'll be back in a bit." When she was gone, Emma fixed Gabriel with one of her direct stares. "Mom cried a lot this morning." Gabriel set the book down. "Was she upset about something?" "No, happy crying. Dr. Rivera showed her my new test results. She said it's like my body suddenly remembered how to fight properly." Emma leaned forward confidentially. "I think it's because of you." "Because of the treatment, you mean?" Emma shook her head. "No, because of you reading to me. In the book, the garden makes Colin better even though the doctors said he would always be sick. I think stories can be magic sometimes." Gabriel was touched by her childlike logic, though he knew the sophisticated gene therapy was the real source of her improvement. "I think the real magic is inside you, Emma. You're very strong." "I know," she said with disarming confidence. "Mom says I get that from my dad, but I don't think that's true since he left before I was born. I think I get it from her. She never gives up even when things are really hard." Gabriel had always wondered about Emma's father, but had respected Sarah's privacy too much to ask. "Your mom is indeed very strong. She's fought very hard for you." "She works too much, though," Emma observed, "even before I got sick. Always 2 jobs, sometimes 3. She gets so tired she falls asleep in her clothes, but she never complains." A familiar guilt tugged at Gabriel. Despite his intervention through the foundation, Sarah had still been working herself to exhaustion before Emma's illness. Perhaps he could have done more sooner. "Your mom loves you very much," he said softly. "I know. And she likes you too, even though she pretends to be suspicious." Gabriel raised an eyebrow. "Does she?" Emma nodded sagely. "She says you're nothing like she expected a billionaire to be. She thought you'd be all stuck up and bossy." And what do you think? Am I stuck up and bossy? Emma considered this seriously. No. You're quiet mostly and kind of sad sometimes when you think no one's looking, like you have a secret hurt inside. Her perception startled him. This child, barely 10 years old and fighting leukemia, had somehow seen straight through to a truth about himself that he rarely acknowledged. Before Gabriel could respond, Sarah returned with her coffee. Everything okay in here? Gabriel and I were just talking about how you think he's not stuck up like other billionaires, Emma said innocently. Sarah's cheeks flushed. Emma, that's not exactly what I... It's all right, Gabriel laughed, enjoying Sarah's embarrassment. I'm flattered to be considered less stuck up than my peers. It's a low bar, but I'll take it. Sarah shot him a grateful look for not taking offense, and Gabriel felt something shift between them, a slight warming, a tentative step toward friendship. Their evening continued with the usual reading session, but there was a new lightness in the room, a cautious optimism that had been absent before. Emma's improvement, though still preliminary, had created space for hope. As Gabriel was preparing to leave, Dr. Rivera appeared in the doorway. I thought I might find you here, Mr. Sullivan. Do you have a moment? In the hallway, the doctor's expression was carefully neutral. Emma's responding remarkably well to the Reichman protocol, better than we anticipated, frankly. That's wonderful news. It is, but there's something unusual in her latest results. Dr. Rivera hesitated. Some of the markers we're seeing don't align with typical recovery patterns for this treatment. It's almost as if what, doctor? As if her body is healing itself in ways the treatment alone doesn't explain. She shook her head. I don't want to overstate this. Science is science, and the gene therapy is clearly working. But there's something additional happening that we don't fully understand yet. Gabriel frowned. Is it cause for concern? No, quite the opposite. Whatever's happening is accelerating her recovery. I've consulted with colleagues at Reichman, and they're equally intrigued. They're sending a specialist next week to observe and collect additional samples. After Dr. Rivera left, Gabriel found Sarah waiting for him near the elevator. Did she tell you? Sarah asked quietly. About Emma's unusual response to treatment? Yes. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself as if suddenly cold despite the hospital's regulated temperature. They're calling it unprecedented. They want to write papers about her case. She looked up at Gabriel, her expression troubled. What if they turn her into some kind of medical curiosity? She's just a little girl. Gabriel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. I won't let that happen. The Foundation has strict confidentiality agreements with Reichman and the hospital. Emma's privacy will be protected. It's not just that. Sarah lowered her voice further. There's something else, something I haven't told the doctors yet, something impossible. What do you mean? Sarah glanced around to ensure they were alone. 3 days ago, Emma had a fever spike overnight. The nurse brought ice packs to cool her down. When Emma touched one, it melted instantly. And not just melted. The water was hot, almost boiling. Gabriel stared at her. That's not possible. I know. I thought I was hallucinating from exhaustion. But then yesterday, during her bath, Gabriel, she heated the bath water without touching the faucets. The nurse saw it too, but we both agreed not to say anything. Who would believe us? Under normal circumstances, Gabriel would have dismissed such claims immediately. But the seriousness in Sarah's eyes, combined with Dr. Rivera's observations about Emma's unusual recovery, gave him pause. Have you spoken to Emma about this? Sarah nodded. She says she feels electricity inside her sometimes, especially after the treatments. She thought everyone felt that way during recovery. Gabriel's mind raced through possibilities: equipment malfunctions, medication side effects, shared delusions brought on by stress and hope. None seemed adequate to explain what Sarah was describing. We should talk to Dr. Rivera, he said finally. If something unexpected is happening with the treatment, the medical team needs to know. And if they think I'm crazy? If they decide I'm an unstable mother making up stories? The fear in her voice was palpable, and Gabriel understood her concern. Medical institutions could be quick to dismiss experiences they couldn't explain, especially when reported by stressed parents of sick children. "I'll be there with you," he promised. "Between my foundation's funding and my personal reputation, they'll have to take us seriously." Sarah studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Tomorrow morning, then, after Emma's usual tests." As Gabriel rode the elevator down to the lobby, his mind struggled to process the implications of Sarah's story. If what she described was real, truly real, then something profound and inexplicable was happening to Emma. Something beyond current medical understanding. The rational, data-driven businessman in him insisted there must be a logical explanation. The experimental treatment was cutting-edge genetic manipulation. Perhaps it had triggered some unexpected metabolic change that created the illusion of the phenomena Sarah described. Yet another part of him, a part that had been awakened by his connection with Emma, remained open to more extraordinary possibilities. After all, was it any more miraculous than the fact that this child had touched his life so profoundly with a simple act of kindness? What Gabriel didn't yet realize was that the mystery of Emma's unusual recovery was about to lead them all into territory that neither his wealth nor his influence could have prepared him for. The line between miracle and science was about to blur in ways that would challenge everything he thought he knew about the world. And about himself. The research team from Reichman Labs arrived the following week. 3 scientists in impeccable suits, bearing equipment that looked more appropriate for a space mission than a hospital room. Emma watched with wide-eyed fascination as they set up their instruments around her bed, peppering them with questions about what each device measured and why it made that particular beeping sound. Dr. Alessandra Vittori, the team's leader, seemed charmed by Emma's curiosity. "You have a scientific mind," she told the girl as she attached sensors to Emma's temples. "Perhaps you'll join our research team someday." "Only if I can bring Cookie," Emma replied seriously, holding up the small stuffed rabbit Gabriel had brought her when she'd mentioned missing her toy from home. The tests continued for 3 days. Blood draws, tissue samples, neural response measurements, and countless other procedures that Gabriel couldn't begin to understand. Sarah remained constantly at Emma's side, while Gabriel visited in the evenings, bringing books and small games to distract Emma from the medical circus surrounding her. On the 3rd evening, Dr. Vittori requested a meeting with all of them: Sarah, Gabriel, Dr. Rivera, and the Reichman team. Emma was left in the care of her favorite nurse, with strict instructions to call immediately if anything unusual occurred. In a small conference room down the hall, Dr. Vittori connected her laptop to a projector. "What I'm about to share with you is highly confidential," she began, her Italian accent more pronounced under stress. "My team and I have been analyzing Emma's response to the experimental protocol, and we found something unprecedented." The screen filled with colorful graphs and charts that meant nothing to Gabriel, though the doctors in the room leaned forward with intense interest. "As you can see," Dr. Vittori continued, "the gene therapy has successfully targeted the mutation causing Emma's leukemia, but there's more." She clicked to the next slide. "The treatment appears to have activated a previously dormant genetic sequence, one we've never seen expressed in a living patient before." Dr. Rivera frowned. "Are you suggesting an off-target effect? Could this be dangerous?" "Quite the opposite. This particular sequence seems to be enhancing her natural recovery processes. It's as if the treatment didn't just correct the mutation, it unlocked some kind of genetic potential." Sarah gripped Gabriel's hand under the table, her fingers ice cold. "What does this mean for Emma? In plain English, please." Dr. Vittori turned to face them directly. "It means she's healing faster than should be medically possible. Her bone marrow is regenerating at 15 times the normal rate. Her immune system has restructured itself in ways we've only theorized about, and her cellular energy production." She shook her head in wonder. "It's off the charts." Gabriel thought of what Sarah had told him, the melting ice pack, the heated bathwater. Could this explain unusual temperature fluctuations around Emma, I mean? The scientists exchanged glances. "We've noticed some anomalous thermal readings," one of them admitted. "Initially, we attributed them to equipment malfunction." "They're not malfunctions," Sarah said quietly. "I've seen it. Emma can affect temperatures somehow. Heat things up." Instead of the skepticism Gabriel expected, Dr. Vittori looked intrigued. "This aligns with the energy signatures we're detecting. Her mitochondria, the cellular powerhouses, are operating at an efficiency level we've never documented in human tissue. So what happens now? Gabriel asked, trying to cut through the scientific jargon. Is she cured? Will these changes last? We believe so, yes. The genetic changes appear stable. As for what it means long-term, Dr. Vittori spread her hands. We simply don't know. This is uncharted territory. She's not going to become some lab specimen, Sarah said firmly, her protective instincts flaring. I agreed to these tests to help her get better, not to turn her into a research subject for the rest of her life. Of course not, Dr. Vittori assured her, but we would like to continue monitoring her progress. With proper confidentiality protections, of course. Gabriel cleared his throat. I believe the Foundation's agreement with Reichmann includes strict privacy clauses. Emma's identity will remain protected in any published research. Absolutely, Dr. Vittori confirmed. We're interested in the science, not in exposing a child to publicity. The meeting continued with discussions of follow-up protocols and monitoring schedules. Through it all, Gabriel found himself thinking not of the miraculous scientific breakthrough, but of Emma, the real child behind the extraordinary data, the little girl who had shared her cookie with a stranger, and who now read The Secret Garden with him each evening, complete with different voices for each character. When they finally returned to Emma's room, they found her sitting up in bed, carefully drawing something on a sheet of paper. She looked up as they entered, her face brightening. Gabriel. Mom, I made something for you. She held up the drawing. A colorful depiction of 3 figures holding hands. One was clearly Emma, with wild curls and a hospital gown. The other was Sarah, tall and slender. And the third, That's you, Gabriel, Emma explained, pointing to the tallest figure. See? I drew us as a family. The simple statement, delivered with childlike directness, hit Gabriel with unexpected force. A family. In all his 30 years, no one had ever included him in such a concept, not since his parents' death when he was Emma's age. Sarah seemed equally affected, her eyes filling with tears. She quickly blinked away. It's beautiful, sweetie. We'll hang it right here where everyone can see it. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep, Gabriel and Sarah stood in the hallway outside her room, both still processing the revelations of the day. A genetic breakthrough, Sarah murmured. My daughter, my ordinary little girl from Queens, turns out to have extraordinary DNA. She was always extraordinary, Gabriel said softly. The DNA just confirms what we already knew. Sarah looked up at him, really studied his face. You know, when I first learned who you were, what you'd done for us, I was sure there had to be a catch. People like you don't just help people like us without wanting something in return. And now I think maybe you needed us as much as we needed you. She touched his arm lightly. Emma was right about you having a secret hurt inside. I recognize it because I've carried my own for so long. The feeling that you have to face everything alone, that you can't trust anyone else to stay. Gabriel was stunned by her perception. How did you? Single mother, remember? Abandoned while pregnant by someone who swore he loved me. You learn to read people to protect yourself. She smiled sadly. But being alone doesn't actually protect you. It just makes the hurt echo louder. Her words resonated with a truth Gabriel had been avoiding for years. His isolation hadn't been a strength but a defense mechanism, a way to avoid the pain of connection and potential loss. Emma's drawing, he said hesitantly. The 3 of us as a family. Would that even be possible? Sarah's eyes widened slightly. Gabriel, are you asking? I don't know what I'm asking, he admitted. I just know that these past months being with you both, even under these circumstances, I've felt more alive, more human than I have in 20 years. Before Sarah could respond, the nurse rushed out of Emma's room. You need to come quickly. Something's happening. They hurried inside to find Emma sitting bolt upright in bed, her eyes wide, her hands extended in front of her. Between her palms, impossibly, hovered a small sphere of what looked like pure light, pulsing, swirling energy contained in a perfect globe about the size of a tennis ball. Emma? Sarah's voice shook. Sweetie, what is that? Emma looked up, not frightened but amazed. I don't know. I was dreaming about the secret garden, and when I woke up, I felt the electricity inside me wanting to come out. So I let it. Gabriel approached slowly, mesmerized by the impossible sight. Does it hurt? Emma shook her head. It feels good. Like when you're really happy and the feeling is too big to keep inside. The sphere pulsed brighter, casting soft golden light across Emma's face. I think it's because of the medicine they gave me. It fixed something that was broken, but it woke up something else too. Dr. Rivera appeared in the doorway, freezing at the sight before her. My God, she whispered. Is she generating that energy? Apparently, Gabriel said, his voice steady despite his shock. And I believe our confidentiality agreements just became even more critical. As if responding to the tension in the room, the sphere between Emma's hands began to flicker and fade. It's okay, she assured them. I can make another one later, I'm just tired now. The light dissipated completely, leaving the room seeming darker despite the overhead fixtures. Emma lay back against her pillows, suddenly looking exhausted but strangely peaceful. I think I need to sleep now, she murmured, her eyes already drifting closed. Sarah rushed to her side, checking her pulse, her temperature. She's fine, she reported with relief. Just sleeping normally. Dr. Rivera approached the bed cautiously, medical curiosity warring with disbelief on her face. I should call Dr. Vittori. Not yet, Gabriel said firmly. Let's give Emma some time to rest. This stays between us for now. Doctor-patient confidentiality applies here more than ever. After Dr. Rivera reluctantly left, Gabriel and Sarah sat on either side of Emma's bed, watching her sleep peacefully. What happens now? Sarah whispered. If she can do that. If she's really changed at some fundamental level. Gabriel reached across the sleeping child to take Sarah's hand. Now we protect her. We make sure she has a normal childhood despite her extraordinary abilities. We keep her safe from anyone who might want to exploit her uniqueness. We? Sarah's voice caught on the word. If you'll let me, yes. We. Gabriel squeezed her hand gently. I meant what I said before. These months with you and Emma, they've changed me. Healed something in me I didn't even know was broken. In the soft hospital light, with Emma breathing peacefully between them, Sarah's eyes met his. The mighty Gabriel Sullivan, billionaire CEO, healed by a little girl's cookie and a mother's struggle. Humbling, isn't it? He smiled ruefully. Fitting, I think. Sarah didn't pull her hand away. Emma's always had that gift, seeing the good in people, bringing out the best in them. Now it seems she has other gifts too. They sat in companionable silence, absorbing the magnitude of what they had witnessed, what it might mean for their future. Gabriel found himself thinking of the first lines of The Secret Garden that he'd read to Emma so many nights ago, about a contrary little girl whose life was transformed when she discovered something magical hidden behind an old stone wall. He had been like that garden once, locked away, dormant, waiting. It had taken a child's simple kindness to turn the key, to let life in again. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn day, Gabriel stood in the backyard of a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, watching Emma chase fallen leaves with a neighborhood friend. Her hair had grown back thicker than before, wild curls catching the sunlight as she ran. No one watching would guess that less than a year ago, she had been fighting for her life in a hospital bed. The doctors called her recovery miraculous. The team from Reichmann continued their discreet monitoring, fascinated by the stable genetic changes that had somehow granted Emma her extraordinary abilities. With practice and Gabriel's guidance, she had learned to control the energy manifestations, using them only in private, understanding the importance of keeping her gifts secret from the world at large. Sarah appeared beside him, handing him a mug of coffee. Penny, for your thoughts? Just reflecting on how much has changed in a year, he said, accepting the mug gratefully. From that night at the restaurant too. This encompassed so much. Emma's recovery, her abilities, the brownstone Gabriel had purchased for them, after much negotiation with a proudly independent Sarah, and the tentative, growing relationship between the three of them. Not quite the traditional family from Emma's drawing, but something equally precious. Sarah leaned against the porch railing. Do you ever regret it? Getting involved with us, I mean. Your life was certainly less complicated before. Gabriel watched Emma demonstrate a cartwheel for her friend, her face alight with the simple joy of movement. Not for a second. My life was empty before. All achievement, no meaning. He turned to face Sarah. Besides, I didn't choose this. Emma chose me, remember? With a chocolate chip cookie and unearned trust. Sarah smiled, the autumn light catching the gold flecks in her eyes. The smallest gifts can change everything. The richest gifts, Gabriel corrected softly, taking her hand in his. From the yard, Emma called out excitedly, Mom, Gabriel, watch this. As they turned their attention to the extraordinary child who had brought them together, Gabriel reflected that wealth had never been about the billions in his accounts. True richness lay in connections, in being seen for who you really are, in having people to care for, in finding your place in the tapestry of other lives. Emma Collins had taught the richest man in New York the true meaning of wealth with nothing more than a slightly crushed cookie, and the innocent wisdom that comes from seeing people not as they appear, but as they truly are. And that, Gabriel now understood, was the richest gift of all.